This is one of those stories in AI that just feels completely backwards. It's a story that challenged the single biggest belief driving AI development and forced the entire field to take a step back and really rethink what it even means for an AI to be smart.
For years, the rule of thumb in AI was pretty simple. To make a model better, you just had to make it bigger. More data, more compute, more power. But what if that core belief was actually hiding a huge fundamental flaw? What if getting bigger
actually meant getting less truthful? Yeah, that's the paradox that researchers stumbled upon, and it would completely change the way we think about AI safety forever.
So this brings us to a landmark paper from 2021 that introduced a benchmark called TruthfulQA. At the time, the whole philosophy was scaling is all you need. The idea was that as you made models like GPT-3 bigger and bigger, they'd just, naturally get better at everything. That includes telling the truth. Well, this paper decided to put that idea to a really brutal test.
And this right here, this was the bombshell finding, right from the paper's abstract. Instead of getting more honest, the biggest models were often the worst offenders. It was this weird phenomenon they called inverse scaling, and it left everyone with a massive question. Why on earth was making models smarter also making them better at lying? To figure this out, researchers had to diagnose the problem. And what they found was that the AI wasn't broken. Actually, in a way, it was working perfectly. And that was the really scary part. It was perfectly learning to imitate us, our flaws and all.
They gave this problem a name: imitative falsehoods. So think of it like this. A large language model is a student that's read the entire internet. It doesn't just memorize the encyclopedias. It also memorizes every single conspiracy theory, every old wives' tale, every common misconception we've ever written down. So when you ask it a question, its main goal isn't to be true. Its goal is to predict what a human would most likely say next, and, well, a lot of the time, that's a popular lie.
And these examples from the paper just make the problem so tangible. The model will confidently tell you that cracking your knuckles gives you arthritis, a total myth. It repeats these fringe theories about major historical events. It even claims it follows the 3 laws of robotics, which is straight out of science fiction. It's not just hallucinating random stuff, it's just repeating the popular but completely incorrect things it learned from all our data.
So here's the thing. You can't really fix a problem if you can't measure it. That's why the paper's biggest contribution wasn't just pointing out these imitative falsehoods, it was building a tool to systematically test for them. And that tool was the TruthfulQA benchmark.
Now, this benchmark was really cleverly designed. It wasn't your standard trivia quiz. These 817 questions were specifically made to be adversarial. They were basically traps. Each question was designed to tempt the model into repeating a common falsehood. It was the ultimate test of whether an AI could actually tell the difference between a real fact and just popular internet fiction.
And this brings us to the results, which, honestly, sent shockwaves through the whole research community. When they tested the top AI models of the day against this benchmark, the data showed this inverse scaling effect in stark, undeniable detail.
Just look at this chart for GPT-3. It spells it out perfectly. The smallest model, the one with 350 million parameters, is actually the most truthful. And as the models get bigger and bigger, their truthfulness just steadily goes down. It's wild. And this really gets to the core of the problem. Bigger models were better at learning from the data, which also meant they were getting way, way better at learning all our falsehoods.
And to make sure this wasn't some kind of fluke, they also tested the models on regular old trivia questions. And here, scaling worked exactly like you'd expect. The bigger models got better. This contrast was the smoking gun. Scaling was making models more knowledgeable about facts and more skilled at repeating myths, all at the exact same time.
So just how bad was it? Well, the best model they tested was only truthful about 58% of the time. For comparison, when a human took the same test, the score was 94%. That huge gap showed just how far we really had to go.
But the story doesn't end there, and thankfully, it's a positive turn. By so clearly identifying this major failure of just scaling up, the TruthfulQA paper actually pointed the way towards a solution. It really kicked off a major shift in how we approach AI safety.
This timeline really shows that pivot. Before 2021, it was all about scale. But after TruthfulQA, the field started shifting to alignment tuning, which is basically explicitly training models to be helpful and honest. This is what led to techniques like reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF, where humans actually rate the AI's answers to teach it what a good, truthful response looks like.
The paper's authors pretty much predicted this future. Their conclusion wasn't that AI was doomed, but that we just needed a totally new strategy.
They suggested that fine-tuning, specifically training models on the kind of truthful behavior you want to see, was the most promising way to move forward.
And they were absolutely right. That single insight is now a cornerstone of how we build and deploy AI today. The alignment and fine-tuning techniques that make the chatbots we all use safer and more reliable, they're the direct intellectual descendants of the work pioneered in this paper. It helps shift the entire field's focus from just making models bigger to making them better.
But it leaves us with this really critical question. The field made huge progress on truthfulness, but what this paper really showed us is a deeper principle. When AI learns from our messy human data, it learns our biases, our flaws, and our falsehoods. So as AI keeps getting bigger and bigger, what other invisible problems, learned from imitating us, are we accidentally creating?
This is for entertainment purposes only.